First step is disconnect your negative terminal on your battery. To drain the radiator fluid, go to the passenger side of the vehicle, and you're going to want to loosen this bolt. You can just do it by hand and let it drain into a clean container. Then you will remove this large air hose. Make sure to cap off the air inlets with something so that dirt does not get in the air system. There's a little air hose that goes back here onto the block. Just take that off and cap it with some duct tape. Now that the radiator fluid is all drained, stored in a safe place, the next step is to use a ratchet on the belt tensioner and then slip it off of the alternator pulley. Now that the belt and hose are off, we will take off this wire connector down here. Grab a 10mm socket and remove the 4 bolts here, back there, and then 2 on the bottom. The bottom bolts can be difficult to reach. I would recommend removing those first and then leaving these for last. Get the compressor moved out of the way. Be very careful not to twist or pinch any wires. I found rotating it up onto the reservoir there seemed to work the best. Then using a 13mm socket, remove the 2 bolts on the alternator. While you're working in your engine, it's always a good idea to just quickly check your oil. It takes a few seconds and it can save a big headache. Now we'll start removing the hoses that connect to this crossover coolant pipe. I'm planning on replacing this hose, which is why I removed it from up here. However, if you are going to reuse your small connecting hose, I would just remove it from down there and leave it attached to this point. Next, use an 8mm socket to remove the bolt holding the runner control solenoid. The last hose that branches off on this T is tucked way behind the back of the engine. So I'm gonna cut it here, and then when we install the new heater hose, I'll splice it in there. There is a 15mm nut that holds this hose to the block, so make sure to get that. All right, I was trying to remove the old hose and it still won't come out, so I'm gonna remove this bracket and we'll see if that will do the trick. Once you remove the 5 bolts, then this piece comes right out. All right, we will have to remove the exhaust manifold to get the tube out. This manifold has 3 bolts on the top and it feels like there's only 2 on the bottom. Back here, there are actually 2 more bolts. So there's actually 4 on the bottom, so make sure you get those 2. Underneath the truck, these 2 bolts right here are the ones I removed. I attempted to loosen these bolts right here, but they were pretty rusted on. So if you can get those off, you can do that. Otherwise, I took the ones off below the truck, whatever works for you. Once you have the exhaust removed, move it out of the way and then tape off the exhaust ports. After much finagling, we were able to remove the part. I ended up dropping it through the space underneath the fan. All right, you can see I have the new piece put down there. I found the best way to sneak it in is to start in the back, take off as many of the tubes as you can with the quick disconnects, push the tube behind the block, and then twist it up a little bit this way. You're gonna twist this piece up, push it down, and then lift this up and twist it back down. There's no perfect solution, but I found that worked the best for me. It only took like a few minutes. Once we have the exhaust secured up onto the block, then we will work on putting these bolts back in. Make sure you have a good seal all the way around the pipe, and then tighten each bolt back and forth, making sure to tighten them evenly. Now we'll start reconnecting all the hoses back up to the master crossover hose. If you have any worn out hoses, make sure to replace them. Once you have all of the hoses hooked up, go around again and make sure that all of the clips are properly put on. You do not want to have coolant spraying once you put this back together. You'll want to put this piece back up onto the block and bolt it on with the 15mm nuts. Mine was missing the second 15mm that was in the middle there. There are two. There's one that is right in here, and then a second one over here. Was able to find another 15mm. Just make sure that's properly attached. You don't have to tighten that down too much, just enough to keep it in place. We're at the point of the project now where you're just putting stuff back together. I took the runner control solenoid off. I'm gonna put that back on, but you might not have had to take that off. Just go around, make sure everything was the way it was when you first started. Worth noting, because the dipstick comes in this area and we were working in this area a lot, as well as we detached both of its mounting points, my dipstick came loose. So I'm going to reattach that. However, make sure you do that before you tighten this hose. I already put everything back, so I'm gonna have to loosen that hose back just to put the dipstick back in. Just make sure you do things in the proper order. While you have the radiator fluid drained, it's a perfect time to replace any old hoses. You can see this lower radiator hose was pretty bad, so we'll be replacing it with a new one. Remember to put the connectors back on your AC compressor. Next step is to put the belt back on. What worked best for me was to put the belt behind the tensioner, get it on the alternator pulley, make sure it's seated on all the pulleys, and then release the tension by using your ratchet to bring the tensioner to the left, and then sneak that belt from behind onto the top. Reconnect your upper radiator hose, and then last step is to put on the air hose and then fill up the radiator fluid. Check for leaks. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section below. Hope you found this either useful or entertaining.